Connecting.
Hey, guys.
Oh!
We did it.
Totally worked this time.
This is awesome. We get like a close-up of your smile. This is it was fine.
No.
It was fine.
Are you in your office right now? Just driving around?
I'm actually at a nursery. We're picking up some plants for the backyard. We're getting it all ready. So I'm excited.
Nice. What kind of plants are we going with?
We're going to little succulents.
Nice. Succulents the best. You don't have to water them that much.
Yeah, there's definitely some strategy there.
Yeah. We have succulents in our office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys do you like the feng shui? When we go split screen, and Theresa and I, we have to be like,
It helps that I'm taller.
Yeah. Well, if you guys were in here together, I wouldn't even be in the camera.
Yeah. So, Devin, you'll appreciate this. Yesterday, I had a patient come in who was shorter than me. Typically, they are shorter than me. He's like, and as I'm talking to him, I'm kind of like looking down. He's like, do you talk down to everyone? And I was like, actually, a lot of people, yes. I not talk down. I guess physically, yes, but not.
Well, everyone we work with, I feel like is like 2 to 3 inches taller than her. And I'm like, where did we find all these monsters that we're working with here? Like Matt's a couple inches taller, and he's like 6'4", 6'5". Hair's a monster.
The hair is different.
When you came in, I was like, man, that guy must just dunk all over people. Like, that's his thing.
Many time back in the day, but yeah, I think it's more like a white man can't jump thing now.
You don't have to if you're tall enough.
I'm in my late 30s. That whole spring in the step has
it sounds like that's like a disease. Oh,
I'm working on my spring as well.
Yeah.
Well, we're super excited to have you on, Devin.
Yeah.
This is take 2, but for all those that didn't see take 1, Devin and I go way back, like 5 years ago. I contacted Dr. Devin because he has basically the go-to chiropractic practice for CrossFitters in Southern California. And since then we've been able to collaborate, and you're now starting a personal brand, the Aligned Life podcast, which I was just on. And I really like where you're going with that, Devin. He's also a father and a husband, father of 2 beautiful kids, beautiful boys, and a beautiful wife. All of it, yeah. You got so many good things going for you. Plus, not only does he have so many good things on paper, which is the most important, but in person, Dr. Devin is an amazing person. So we got together not too long ago and talked about life, movement, about building your own brand, about how to influence more people than just one-on-one, which is very rare for a practitioner to want to do that. You just get caught up with the pump and dump, as you can. Traditional practices can get caught up in the pump and dump, and we have never wanted to do that. And the fact that we're both now building the ability to help more people, it's really cool to be able to collaborate with someone like yourself. So, would you like to add anything else, though, about the Aligned Life?
Tell us about all of it.
Well, so yeah, you're exactly right. The whole thing was sort of a scratch my own itch deal, where it was like, man, like you said, Theresa, I was just tired of having the one-on-one conversation over and over again. And I wanted to be able to spread a message that I thought was relevant and that was actually being neglected in the overall population. And that is, very simply, in order for people to live what I'm calling the aligned life, the first thing that they have to do is they have to take responsibility for their health. And I know that that sounds so contrived and sort of obvious. However, the vast majority of the treatment that's really available for people these days is a non-responsibility type of treatment for their health. And that kind of pissed me off, just to be honest. So that was the first step. Then the second piece was, well, what would people have to do in order to take that responsibility? And that came down to a few, what we're calling pillars or steps. And really all it is trying to get really good around these pillars and create routines or habits or behaviors to help people to be able to live a better quality of life and allow their body to naturally express health from the inside out rather than having to go and try to get something from outside their body and put it into the body in order to be able to get them well. And so the pillars, I think you've got it on the Facebook page. It's mindset first. Why? Mm-hmm. Because if you want to actually level up in anything in your life, the first thing that you have to do is you have to change your what? You've got to change your mind. So that's first. Then second is all the systems or the strategies. So what are the systems that we focus on? Number one is movement, i.e. movement RX. Second is going to be nutrition. The third is going to be postures. And then the last one that actually has been recently added in, which I think was brilliant. And I personally didn't even come up with this. Our nutritionist, Rachel Freeman, was like, hey, you're missing this. It was community or connection. Her argument, which I think is relevant, was even if you were doing great in mindset, nutrition, movement, and postures, if you were lonely and you didn't have what I'm calling a wolf pack, if you didn't have your wolf pack or your crew, you can still be miserable and not well. And so I was like, okay, well, we have to add this in. So I was compelled to add that part of it in. And so, that's what we're focusing on. So we've got the podcast that's going. We've got a weekly email that goes out called Trending Tuesday. We're coming out this month with our video series. And then obviously people can come into the practice and check out what we're doing live.
So this aligned life thing, all four of these pillars coming together. This didn't just happen. You didn't just make this stuff up overnight. And I feel like a lot of us come from these athletic backgrounds where we see these things happen over and over and over again until we finally recognize the patterns in them and why some people are successful. What is a little bit of that athletic background, and kind of how has it helped you in building this chiropractic business and just figuring out how you became like the best you that you could be?
So, honestly, I had two things happen to me really early on in my life that pretty much changed my professional path. The first one, I'm incredibly blessed. I've got two amazing parents. My dad was a cardiologist for 38 years over at Scripps in San Diego. My mom was a preschool teacher pretty much from the very beginning. These guys were showing me what it was like to work hard in service to other people. That was like a main thing in our household. And then number two, I figured out I was pretty good like with hand-eye coordination and using my body. So I ended up playing like a lot of sports in high school, quarterback on the football team, MVP of the basketball team. I was the San Diego Player of the Year for volleyball. Ended up getting a scholarship to UC Irvine where I did my undergrad work. The hard part with this was, honestly, the only thing that I cared about during this time period was I just wanted to win. Flat out, that's all I cared about. I just wanted to win. So accordingly, I racked up like every injury you could ever have. Dislocated shoulders.
It's like the common thing.
Yeah. Collapsed my lung a few times. I mean, like the list is like crazy long. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, I was totally disconnected with my health. And I was living a very much an outside-in paradigm. What I mean by that is I wasn't taking any responsibility. I would just ignore every health problem I had until I couldn't ignore it anymore. Then I would just medicate it. When I had medication that finally wore off and the problem returned, which of course it always did, then I would just accept that health problem as what my new normal was really going to be. And so at that point, I pretty much just saw the trajectory of my life just kind of wanting to take a dive. And luckily, I ended up going to chiropractic college, and they showed me that there were things that I could control that if I did on a regular basis, I would get more well and express more health. And they were simple. It was like how you eat, how you move, and how you think. Like what goes on up here changes your entire physiology. And I focused then on my posture, obviously going to chiropractic college. And over the 4 years of chiro school, I was able to rehabilitate my body. And so I figured out what didn't work. I figured out what worked. And then we just started implementing it. And, now, like you guys have talked about, we've got this amazing place where people can go to get well.
That's a really, I remember you sharing with me part of your story when we sat down a few months ago, but I can relate to where you are too in my own way. Yeah. And I think all of us, obviously, that's why we're doing this. We've come from pain, and it makes us we've learned our lessons, and we have the power to help people. We're using our knowledge to help people. And I think that makes for a very authentic way of helping people because you've been there and you're living what you're asking people to do. Like you're setting an example, which is not that common in the
Yeah, I feel like we get asked a lot. It's like, because we are, everything we do is kind of based out of like getting people to slow down, breathe properly, and have this conversation with themselves. And like when you sit down, your brain goes crazy and you kind of have to sit there and ask yourself, like, is this story real or am I just kind of making this one up? And, you know, and then we can start to dissect like pain, posture, and all these pieces. When you put these things into a business sense, like when did the Shea family chiropractic start? How long have you guys been there? The mission, vision, kind of, how did it never starts with these huge lofty goals? I feel like it's always this tiny little thing and you're like, whoa, we impact people, holy crap.
Yeah, it was so this is 10 years ago when the practice started. I was over in Poway, California, little tiny clinic. It's like one room that I was renting from this other dude. I had 0 patients on day one. I didn't do any marketing. I was literally on a street corner, no joke. I was about to be a sign spinner for my own business. Right?
That would be such a good like YouTube video of your own self, like doing all the tricks out there and then running inside to treat.
Seeing a few people and then running back out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, this was real life, and you know, responsibility and family create quite a bit of motivation, I would say, for putting your word out there. And so we started doing talks. You know, we started doing talks. I did my first talk at CrossFit System, which is in Escondido, for Tom and Judy Fitzgerald out there. And they let me to come in and I spoke about nutrition, which was a passion of mine. And people showed up. And I was like, whoa, this is neat. They actually cared what I had to say. And so then I just started speaking and speaking and speaking. And now probably for the last 7 years, I spend about 30 to 35 weeks a year on a Saturday speaking at a CrossFit gym somewhere in San Diego County. And so because of that, you know, just in the clinic, we've seen, or personally, I've seen over 1,000 CrossFit athletes come through the door. And just like you talked about, Anders, there's so many things that just kept showing up that became very obvious, especially around things like lower back, right? And the movements that were done and the types of faults that we were seeing with athletes, that it actually became fun and it became easier and it became something where we could really refine the technique that we were incorporating and start adding in these other pieces that help people to get more well by adding in a nutritional component, by adding in massage, by adding in full spine traction, by adding in better imaging and better diagnostic skills and so forth. And so, it's definitely an evolution. You're absolutely right. It started out in small origins, but now it's gained this momentum, and now it's really fun to take part in on a regular basis. It's cool.
Yeah, I've so starting my practice 5 years ago, I got to see some patients who were also seeing you, Dr. Devin, and all nothing but good reviews, like always, like the most kind person. Well, I mean, so I'm just
nervous.
5 stars, Yelp. But literally that doesn't happen. Like most of the time, and because I'm a physical therapist, right? You're a doctor of chiropractic. Obviously, we're so much more than that. Like we're helping people on a much bigger scale. But people they come in and they usually they've tried a bunch of therapists. And they've tried a lot of PTs or been to a bunch of chiropractors, and not one, like all of them, like that have come to see me, that I see you in conjunction, or that I've heard about you on the street, like all amazing things. So
thanks, I appreciate that. And
that's a little plug, because if you're out there and you need, you're the real deal.
Yeah, thanks. And the same thing is being said for for all the work that you guys are doing. Honestly, it's so easy for me to refer you guys because I know that they're going to go down there and they're going to get a quality service, and people are going to walk away. And the best part is they're going to be empowered because you guys aren't about give a man a fish. You guys are more about teach a man to fish so that they can really take care of themselves for the long term. And I love that philosophy.
Yeah.
So when you get into that stuff, because I think that this is one thing that, fishing. So people come in and they're looking for these simple answers. And I think what's so cool about the 4 pillars that you talk about is you have to want to learn how to change. And when you talk to people like this, it's impossible for them to, we hand them a program and the very first thing that we say do is now you have to sit down and sit still and breathe. And it's like, man, I thought you were just gonna hand me this thing. It's like, no, we all have to go on this journey to how do we heal ourselves, because no matter what, we'll be here, but we can't service every single person. You have to go on this journey to find out what works for best for you. What is kind of some of the ways, or how do you get that message across to them that's like, look, I have this skill, but the more important thing is that you go on this journey of wellness yourself to find out what works for you?
Yeah, so I actually look at myself more as like a coach. And I know that sounds sort of odd, but coaching is helping people find the inspiration within themselves in order to make change. And this is huge. So, and it's all about communication and understanding and really being a good listener. This was my big goal in practice for 2017 is I want to be the best listener out there, because when you listen, you get an opportunity to hear the details and you hear what people are not saying. They'll maybe say it with their body language. They maybe say it with their tone. They maybe say it with some small inflection in their voice. And then you know what's driving them, because if you want to be a good coach, you have to know what motivates people. And so it's these small things that make such a huge difference, because anybody can tell anybody, okay, do these, 3 sets of 5 days a week, right? But it's the person who is a good listener that's created trust, gotten their attention, and now has rapport that's going to empower someone to get to the next level. And that's the person that you want to pay for. And you should be paying for them, because that's an investment, because you're going to get something out of it.
Yeah.
That's really well said, actually, Devin. I was going to ask you, are you by chance an empath by nature? Have you ever done Myers-Briggs?
Yeah. Shoot, I don't know. I think I was.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I would say just by listening to you, you definitely have. Here I am, totally judging you over the internet.
I'm gonna
because
I
remember when I saw you at Claire's. This is great. So remember I saw you at Claire's not too long ago?
Yeah.
The lady I was talking to. So we were talking about that, being able to coach people and pay attention to what people are saying, and actually being able to pick out things and help them by what they're not saying.
Right.
And the ability to do that comes from, they have to be selfless. You have to slow down. You have to really freaking care.
Yeah.
And it just so happens she's an empath. I'm an empath, so I'm just, maybe we're a tribe of empaths,
I think it's important.
Yeah. Well,
but it's so important, yes.
When we live, so we have this really unique spot, I think, in life where we help people get out of pain. And that word itself is such a broad word, because you never really know what is actually causing that. And the more you listen and the more you're able to ask a good question, the more you find out oh, that back pain, or oh, that knee pain really is the tip of the spear of what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
And she is super ninja in the clinic, where I feel like everyone just starts spewing their life out on the table. But that's what happens when people are in this very vulnerable place where they're, how am I going to get out of this pain? And you're like, well, how's work going? oh, I sit in traffic, I'm not inspired, like my boss sucks, and you're like, oh, well, let's think about like some of those other things, and then I'm going to do these little techniques because I can help with this one piece, but here's the journey that we need to go down.
Yeah, a mentor of mine says, you know, your job is to coach people on how to live, and sometimes you use chiropractic.
That's good. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love it.
So tell us about the Align podcast. This is the new venture. We've got these 4 pillars.
Yeah.
What inspired you to start recording these conversations that you're having with people and sharing with the world?
You know, I'd been sitting back and watching this happen, meaning like podcasts and videos and so forth, for about a year and a half. And I think honestly, I was kind of grieving my potential, meaning I felt like I had a message to share, and I was like sitting on the sidelines of a game and watching, and that felt terrible. And I really wanted to be able to jump in. And so I think the podcast was great because sometimes, especially in the modern world, we need a long format for people to be able to hear or be exposed to. And I think of it, honestly, the podcast is like my commuter's TV, right?
Yeah.
When people have that 30-minute commute going from home to office, they can throw in the headphones and they can just zen out on this message. And I love being able to think about having somebody change the way that they do their day based upon something that we had a chance to empower them with first thing in the morning. And so it was just a fun idea. And I think you know, being able to bring on guests who are experts in these different pillars is a really cool way to learn, and also to give people some of the nitty-gritty action steps that they need to take in order to help them level up in whatever that category is. So we've got, you know, experts like Theresa was on there. We've got, you know, different shows that are designed to give people an opportunity to just make it very simple for them to progressively improve a routine or a habit or a behavior.
Yeah.
And by doing so, be able to get them, you know, further to a place where they're going to really not have to rely on medication. You know, I was looking at this stat. So it's the United States of America makes up 4.6% of the world's population. And yet we consume 56% of the world's pharmaceutical supply. And that includes over 80% of the world's opioid supply, which that means, you know, payment.
That's insane.
It's insane. So when people go and they're like, and you guys create a product called the low back fix, which that has nothing to do with drugs.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. It needs
the good kind of drugs.
Yeah.
Right?
The good kind.
The good drug. Yeah. So like, it's the type of stuff that we need more of this. In fact, we need to be screaming this from the hilltops in order to get people to understand what's going on and how it's impacting people. Because here's the deal. Drugs are not the answer.
Yeah.
Pain is not the cause of your problem. Pain is a symptom of your problem. And drugs are only going to allow you to feel better while you get more sick and break down, because you're never changing the behavior that caused the problem in the first place.
Be smart.
And so, holy crap, do the low back fix, because it's changing your behaviors. So it is getting at a root cause of what's going on. So just do that.
I love it. It's so much so.
Our spokesman.
So much. Yeah. No, but it's incredible. And I think that what's so cool about your show and us being able to have these conversations is, for the first like 10 years of our careers, we're so worried about being good at our job. And then one day you wake up and you're like, hey, I'm kind of good at this. How the hell am I going to influence everybody?
Right.
Like, as a strength coach, I can't be a personal trainer anymore, because then I'm just doling out workouts. And you have to change from this technician of what you do and learning all this stuff to, how do I become like an educator so we can reach the masses and change the way people think about their lives? Because we can't just say, here's the workout, or come lay on this table, I'm going to make you feel better. It's, man, I can make you feel better, but I want you to live a better life. And that comes through an education process that we all had to go through while we were being the technician, and while we were learning the best procedures to do and how to fix these little problems. And in order for us to become good at that, it was like, well, we had to go on this like educational journey on our own. And I don't know what your bookshelf looks like, but mine's like an encyclopedia of self-help.
Yep,
and
exactly right.
You have to go through these progressions to get to a level. It's like, wait a second, this thing that I've been spending so long trying to get good at, like being a good coach, being a good practitioner, man, that's like a really small piece of this whole puzzle. And now you have the ability to really reach out to people and change the way that they think before they get to work in the morning. It's so awesome.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
I also think that, so for those of you listening, we're going to be sharing this Facebook Live for the weeks to come, that being able to learn from someone who is living it. So from personal experience of working with Devin and working alongside him as a practitioner, but also now in the world of the internet, trying to influence people authentically, like you want to learn from someone who actually walks their talk. And that's also very rare. So it's nice that, you know, we're both in the same world of wanting to influence people and working together to get information out there. There's no competition in it. It's all like,
yeah,
how many people can we influence together? And I like that because we're in a tribe together of the few, the proud, the influencers of the internet.
Mindful movers.
And the people that want to are asking people to take ownership of their health. I, like you, Devin, you know, over the last probably 4 months, really, we've, you know, pinpointed our own pillars for the program too, which is breath, balance, behavior.
You mentioned all of them without even knowing.
So I was reading the book Extreme Ownership, which I somewhat liked. I mean, it's very military, so I kind of get tired of reading some of the military books. But it's a business book about asking companies to take ownership of, you know, their companies. So like, stop putting responsibility, like take responsibility for your actions. And I'm like, there's no real talk about ownership of health, but that wasn't the point of the book. But when I was reading it, I was like, I have no desire to really, at this point, do any business coaching at the moment for people, but although that's very much needed in the physical therapy world, but I do have a desire to get people to learn how to get people to take ownership of their own health. Like we were having a conversation with someone in our vicinity here, downtown area, and a secretary we were like, where do you train? Where do you do fitness? Where do you work on movement? She's like, nowhere. And I'm like, well, Anders was actually having this conversation, and we're like, well, where do you want to? And she's like, no, I'm kind of lazy. And he's like, well, what do you want to, what if, you know, I mean, what if you got sick? Or like, what happens if you get sick? And she's like, oh, well, if I became a little more overweight or a little sicker, maybe I would start doing something. But, you know, it was sad to me. That's a very typical response, though, for the average Joe. Like, wait till you're sick to do something. And so we're very much as educators and coaches, wanting, like you, to get out there and say, take a stand now before you're broken, and develop this character trait called grit, and develop a routine. And maybe it's not, you know, maybe it's something that's not like your highlight of your day, but you're getting movement in, and inevitably it's going to impact your mood, inevitably it's going to impact your health. And so why not be a little selfless too and do it for those you love, because you want to be around for a long time. It's not all about you. Like, people love you. Take care of yourself. Like, you got kids, you know, you have a husband or a wife. Like, when you take care of yourself, it infiltrates into the rest of your life and relationships.
Yep. A lot of times we forget the generational impact of health, and how when one person in the family is sick, it impacts everyone else in the family and potentially in their community. You know, if I'm sick, what's going to happen to my employees? Right? What's going to happen to their families? So it's this sort of ever, you know, growing circle of impact because I was selfish and didn't want to take care of myself. And I don't think a lot of people see it that way. They're just thinking of the one. And unfortunately for a lot of people, they're in survival mode. So thinking that big puts them immediately into overwhelm, which is hard. And I totally get that. But there's also a layer of, seize the day, right? Carpe diem. You got to go and you've got to do something right now that's going to affect. I'm gonna step back because this is really important. One of the pieces that we've hit on so many times now in the Align Life is this: people are looking at the microscopic with a microscope, but where they need to be looking is through a telescope. They need to be looking through the big picture. They need to think about where they want to be in 20 years from now. And current action steps, are their current behaviors aligning with what it's going to look like for them in 20 years from now? And if not, then something has to change. And the only way that's going to happen is if they take responsibility.
Yeah. Agreed, Devin. Well said.
I think that's a good one to end on.
Okay.
Where can people find Shea Chiropractic?
Yeah,
Family Chiropractic, sorry.
No, yeah. SheaFamilyChiropractic.com. You can go on there and check us out. We've also got, a YouTube channel, same thing. Facebook, same thing.
And the Align Life podcast?
Align Life podcast is on iTunes, and it's also on Stitcher and Google Play, so you guys can find us there as well. And I'm excited about everything that you guys are doing, Anders and Theresa. You guys keep kicking butt out there, letting people know what's up.
Yeah, and we also will be launching an affiliate, so you can find him, Shea.thelowbackfix.com, and we're rolling that out and getting the first 10-ish people signed up so we can see how we can help practitioners, coaches around the country. So Shea.thelowbackfix.com. Thanks a lot for hanging out.
Thank you, Dr. Devin.
Bye, guys.
Have a good
Thank you.
day.
All right,
Have a great
bye.
day.